Thank you for watching Principle Living, where we teach you how to use principles to be more successful in life. Today we have a special guest, Leena Menodza. Hello, Leena.
Hi, how are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. If you can tell the audience a little bit about what you do and who you are, please, a little
Sure.
bit of intro.
Well, I'm Leena Mendoza. I am the founder of Intentional Leadership. I am now here based in the Silicon Valley. And so I say that because I'm originally from the Central Valley. I am a military kid, so I lived in different places in the world. I was born in Bangkok, Thailand. So I'm a Thai citizen and a U.S. citizen, and I'm of mixed races. So I'm Thai, Laos, and Mexican. Yo hablo español también. So a lot of people are very shocked to see that and hear that because I look very Asian, but I am, but I'm also half Mexicana. So I'm able to speak English and Spanish, but not speak Thai and Laos. And so I've just been very blessed to have the experience that I have in growing up, seeing different parts of the world as a military kid, and then also seeing through the lens of the world, right? And so really providing that global mindset and continue to cultivate that mindset, and how can I help the world? And so definitely with the internet, that makes that very real, and it makes it it's true. And so just grateful to be here now, centralized in the Silicon Valley, where a lot of the ideas go to implementation, starting right here from the Silicon Valley. So the impact starts right here from the Silicon Valley. So I don't know if a lot of people realize that, but I think that's even more of a reason why we want to have a higher conscience, because if as we're here, we can also provide more influence and impact, and really how we navigate through those ideas and concepts. And so it's been a blessing, to be able to do that. And so my background includes government. So I've worked very heavily in finance and budget management, also working as a professor for a community college for 5 years. And then I did a lot of workshops for the university for about 10 years. And then also having experience with nonprofits. So I've been a social worker. I've also worked for the prison. I've been a substance abuse counselor. And so kind of a very multifaceted background, very strong in business and very strong in social services and education. So I don't know that many people have, they're kind of very linear. They have like a one track, but I really think that when you use like God's gifts, that's what is the most important. And as we find through challenges and obstacles, that's what really matters, is using your gifts to not only to survive, but I really bring the mentality of how we thrive, because I believe that God really does have an opportunity for us. And so we just really got to look at it through kind of a spiritual lens rather than the way of the world. So that's my experience.
Sounds like a big background, which is you have a lot of experience in a lot of aspects of life. So what we want to talk about is, what have been 3 principles that you have applied into your life that have gotten you to where you are right now? And if we'll break them down one by one, but what do you think it will be the main one, the principal one, like the one that has helped you the most?
So it's funny that you say that, because I actually teach in the 3-prong approach. So with my own company in Intentional Leadership, I provide the 3 pillars, or the 3, as you say, the 3 principles. And so for me, it's character. And so character, communicate, connect. And so I know you're going to ask like kind of me to break that down at some point. But I'd say character, because you can have all the degrees you want, but that's not why we hire you. We hire you because of who you are. And so people think that it's because of their background. It's because of who you are as a human being. And so more and more, as you acclimate to higher levels of leadership, it is who you are that helps you navigate accordingly. So there's a saying in human resources, or when we're hiring you, we say it's what you do that gets you hired. It's who you are that gets you fired. So integrity is very critical, right? So character is super amazing, because you can brand yourself on a personal brand. So it's, people know you as Warner, like an amazing human being, right? So not as all the other jobs that you did, or, but it's really, that's what it is. And so, and that's what happens, right? So you get referred, and it doesn't matter what you did or what your degree was, or your GPA, or did you help the mission, right? People are going to say, man, you got to work with Warner. He's amazing. That's it. And so when you're branded that way, I think it's very impactful. I think it definitely builds relationships. And then also helps you be able to connect with people from different levels. And so I come from a point where I define leadership as leading through servant leadership with humbleness and humility. So it's very important that you continue to look through that lens of humbleness and humility, because we don't have to have everything that we do. And when you have a strong character, it's gonna shine. You're gonna shine bright because of that. And people will always come to you for support and will also support you because of that. So it's a two-way street. But as you continue to build relationships with people, people are just going to naturally draw to you, because who you are, that's who you connect with. So if you're amazing, you donate, you ask for donations, you're going to partner with people who have the same shared values, and who you are matters. And so and it's important to continue to foster and cultivate that character. And so people think, how can you become a better person? You actually can't become a better person. It takes time to learn that, and but you got to work at it. And so it's funny because people go, there's no way someone can keep growing. And I'm like, yes, there is a way to keep growing. So maybe if, so an example, like how you would grow in mindset and character is maybe you didn't have the opportunity to financially support somebody, but you could donate your time, right? That's equivalent to money as well. Maybe your hands are very powerful and you can lift things. Your hands also can be powerful where you can pray for people. And then at some point, as you pivot and you continue to increase in your levels of leadership, your income and your will also grow. And so you can write those checks and you can be a leadership giver. And so that is powerful too, because people need the money to buy the food or resources. And so so at some point you might have only been able to give the time, which is super important, or prayer, but then at some point too, you are that resource giver. And so that's growing, right? Because you have to really work on your heart going, oh man, I got to let go of my money. And so you got to be a cheerful giver. You don't want to be like, I don't know if I want to give that to you, but be a cheerful giver. You got to cultivate that in your heart. And I think definitely God works on us at different times and different paces, because I think we work in the flesh. And so yeah, so it's a great opportunity to learn, because I've been there when I've had that scarcity mindset, like, oh man, the struggle is real. And so I don't want to help financially, because I'm like, I might not make it myself. But the more you learn that life is abundant and you just continue to grow your character, and you're like, okay, I'm a good person. I know it's going to happen. God's going to bless me. So character is a very, very strong principle for me.
I truly believe that when you talk about leadership, character is a big, big thing about leadership. Like who you are and why you're, like you said, integrity, it's a must when you're a leader. And there's a lot of skills that you have to develop your character that actually makes you a leader. If somebody doesn't have integrity, it's very hard to trust them.
Right.
And when you can't trust a person, then you cannot be a leader. So leadership is very attached to character. Is there like a time or an experience in your life that you really realized that you had to apply character?
So I've worked heavily with finance and money, and so millions and millions of dollars. I think my largest project was $56 million. And I'm very much a rule follower. So I was even tasked to, saying, can you locate $1.4 million? And I'm like, it's not good. You can't find it. Penny for penny, very responsible. And so I think also with a character, when you're a strong character, you learn as a leader to be responsible. And so definitely, learning that character was important. So when you deal with money, your integrity is important, or otherwise you'll go to jail. And so I even had trainers, like I hug them and they're like, why are you hugging me? And I'm like, oh my God, thank you so much for showing me how to follow these rules, because I don't want to go to jail. And so I'm like very adamant about that. And so because I have seen that happen in my industry, I've worked for a nonprofit where there was $300,000 embezzled, and I didn't have a job. I'm like, oh, that's what happens. You also get let go because there's no money to pay you. So working around money, people put their hand in there. And so I will count your money as long as there's a camera crew on me. And they're like, really? I'm like, oh yeah, really, because I guarantee you won't question me on that. And so, and you can always trust me, but I also can trust that cameras are on me. So but really, I say that as well, is that if you, let's say your parents, for example, could you do that in front of your parents? And if the answer is no, then you shouldn't do that, right? So that's accountability and transparency. But as a person of character, that's not good. So some people maybe not have a faith in God, but I do. And so I'm like, what will God say when I get to heaven? He'll be like, girl, you go to the back of the line. I don't know, right? So I want him to be like, no, no, you did good, come through. And so, so really having that character. And so, yeah, that's definitely when I work with money, characters, everything. It brands you. So you have to keep track of it, and you can't be off. It can't be stolen. It can't be missing. You're like, I don't know what happened to that $1 million. You have to like return it. And so, and report it. So yeah, so character is very, very important when it comes to finance, and then also helps you continue because you've been so responsible. It helps you get promoted. And so some people might be like, well, how does that even take a play in your career? I'm like, because I'm very, very responsible. And and so some people are like, that's like boring. I'm like, I know, but boring gets you paid. So I don't know. It can work for you too. So, but it doesn't sound like cool when you're younger. And I say it because, some people are like, oh, I never seen it that way. And the reason why you advance in your career is actually because you increase your level of responsibility. So yeah.
So you would say that maybe handling money and the environment that you were at, do you think money has a part to do with not just knowing, but actually revealing your character when it comes to handling money?
Yes, because they want to know that you're not going to mishandle that, right? So you're going to be a good steward. Also that like because I'm a buyer as well, so I've done that. And so I'm buying millions of dollars of products. Like, I've got 3 hours to spend $1.5 million. And we were like, oh man, I would have fun with that. And I'm like, well, I didn't know what I was buying, so that wasn't good. And so I had to learn quickly and use it responsibly. So it's a very common term in the government to be a good steward of your dollars. It's also a biblical term. And I think it's very important to understand that, so stewardship is being responsible. It's right. It's like, so they know you're not going to misuse that opportunity. And so, yeah, it's very much part of, why they watch you and why it's important to know that. So, yeah. So, cause they were like, I didn't know that. I'm like, well, they want to know it's still there. And they want to know that you're not buying a Maserati, that you're buying Ford Focuses for the state, or electric vehicles. So that's what I was doing on that specific project. And I had to be a good steward of $1.5 million. And so, and was I going to spend it like efficiently and with them in mind, rather than, I want, like going like, well, I really do feel like I should get a Lamborghini, but really having, you in mind as in your partnership. So, yeah.
Understood. Awesome. So going to the next one, what do you think will be the second principle that you've used that has helped you the most?
So what I've learned is that communication is very critical, definitely as a leader. So learning to state what your expectations are, and then definitely like if you're in a relationship. So if you're married or if you're in a partnership, also like with your family, how you're doing, and definitely it's also what gets you. So in the workforce, in the marketplace, it's what gets you. It is also what helps you get hired. So, and we say that strategic partnership, we say the collaborative partnership. So learning how to communicate right with your team. And that's also the reason why people get fired. And people are like, really? I'm like, no, I've studied when people get hired and fired, because I've wanted to make sure that those that I help transition into their career, that they are established long-term. And they're very successful. And so communications it's a very, very important tool to make sure not only as a leader to communicate to your team to get them to the other side to success, but also, just articulating that. So just if you're from a humble background, you may not be used to asking for what you want. So learning that it's not bossy or aggressive. Definitely in business is very important. So the two keys in business is always, this is what I want and this is what I want. And it's not like, hi, how are you? Please, thank you. It's not like that. There is not really politeness in the professional world. It's really about being direct. And so can you be polite? Yes, but it's definitely about being clear and concise. And so definitely communication is very critical. It is exactly why you'll be able to grab more clients in the workplace. It is definitely why you'll get married. So I've had people like, young students that I mentored, and they didn't tell their partner they wanted to be married. And they're like, I don't know, what if they break up? I'm like, then you should upgrade. So if they don't want to marry you and you want to marry them, then you don't have the same values aligned. So it's very, communication is key. And when you don't communicate, that's why you get let go. And so because you're not speaking up. And so sometimes people have a hard time with that. And I teach that in my modules, is really learning how to communicate effectively. Is your messaging on point? Do we understand what you're stating? And so, and I don't think people realize how super important it is. So one of the examples I give is like with an airplane. So they have something called a black box when you're in an airplane, and it records everything that what the airplane like does in the transition. And so as there's an accident or like it crashes, the first thing they do is they go to the black box and they track the communication. And so, because that's, in that case, that's a matter of life or death. And so it can be, right, depending on what realm you're in. So, and then always just really providing that as an opportunity for being transparent. Like, I don't think people know that, like how to, if you're married, you want to say, oh, I'm having lunch with a colleague at this location, so they don't think, someone sees that and takes a picture like, oh, your partner's having an affair, right? So, or I'm saying, hey, I am very committed to my marriage, and so I'll bring, I bring somebody along, or I meet in public, and so because I respect my marriage, and that's not, I don't meet the opposite sex, and so being open about, just saying that, some people might go, that's weird, and you're like, sorry, that's what I believe, and that's what you have to respect. So really, communication will help you stay married for a long time. It's typically the reason why people also get divorced, and so the lack of communication. And so there's a strong, relationship or correlation there, right? So people get married because of communication. They also get divorced because of communication. And so definitely the better you are at that, then the long-term more you'll see in a relationship and in a job. So yeah.
That is true, especially because the first one you said, character, and right now communication. I think those are all traits for a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you learn how to communicate, how to be effective, and not just communicate, but be effective at it,
Right.
can develop you a lot. There are a lot of people that can give you a big speech, but you don't get the point. And there are people that can, and let's say that speech can be for an hour, you just didn't get a lot of value. But there are people that are very effective. Just to give you an example, like Gary Vee, he can be very direct, but in a short period of time, he's a communicator. He likes to communicate his message. So he's right to the point. He knows what he's saying, and it's like short and very direct the way he talks and everything. So I believe that communication it's actually very valuable. So that's a good trait to have. Was there a situation in your life that make you realize that, like that you needed to be a communicator in order for you to become better?
Yeah, so when I onboarded on as a professor, I always study why you're amazing, and I always study why someone might not identify you as amazing. So when I was working with millennials, I knew that companies were like, do not give me that kid. Like, they're awful. And I was like, really? Like, they have a 4.0, like they're amazing and they like cure cancer. So I just didn't understand that. I was like, what is it with millennials that this makes this, generation so like different? And so I studied them, I worked with them. I've always had a great experience with millennials. And so I studied that. And then I found that and I say study and research. And so I shared it in another interview. I said, it's like a 30-minute like glance at the internet. It's not like I'm doing like research for Harvard. Like, it's not like that. And so, because some people get intimidated by the word research, I'm like, it's Google. Like, you just read a couple articles. And I said, why do people get hired? And they're like, top 10 reasons, great at communication. And it was at the top. And then, it said character, like who you were. And then it said top 10 reasons why you get fired, communication. So I was like, like that's, but I looked it up for marriage too. And like, people didn't feel heard, right? Because communication is also listening. And so I taught the students that, and I taught them 3 main, values and principles. And then towards the end of the semester, because it wasn't like included in their curriculum, I added the word love and humble. And so that they would always remember where they came from. If they were hood to Hollywood, you still have to be, humble. And so it helped them. And they were like, Miss Mendoza, I got a job. And I'm like, yes, you will get a job. So I share that, when you say that in an interview, like I said, you say I'm an effective communicator, I'm great at collaboration. You'll get hired. I said, if you meet somebody at a bar, they say, why should I date you? I go, don't tell them you have 3 kids right away. You want to say, I am great at communication. I'm a great person of character. I go, that will get you a second date. And they've tried it and they're like, hey, it works. And I'm like, interview for a date or interview for a job, it's going to work. And so because I really wanted to help them, as millennials and young students, understand what will make them successful in professional and personal for the long term. And so I think, I just brought a different approach, because I didn't want to just teach like career development and how they, they should live, or college life skills, but really just as long term be successful and happy as a human being. And so I still have those relationships with the students, and they've already graduated and finished their masters. So it's definitely been some time, but I've been able to see the rewards from that, from teaching that principle. And they're like, "Is that what you teach?" I'm like, "That's it, lock and load, communicate." And they're like, "That's crazy." And I'm like, "That's all you have to know." Like, it's a very simple principles, 16 chapters, but I was able to teach them, and that's when I learned even more, that millennials were misunderstood. And so, because they look at their phone, right? So the communication to us would mean you're not paying attention, but that's a generational view. So that's, it could also be a cultural view. Maybe they're listening to what you're saying, so they're looking at, well, I don't know what you mean by servant leadership. So they look it up, but because they're looking down, they look like they're not paying attention. So, and when you explain that to them, they're like, oh no, I was looking at what you were saying. So they were not communicating their transaction. And they're like, oh, well, yeah, that's what I'm doing. And so I was also told when I was hired for senior management to fire a millennial. And I was like, I don't even know him. Like, what did he do? And they're like, he's not good. He's just lazy. And so because he's very fun, that communicated to a different generation that he was lazy. He doesn't stress out. So that means he's lazy. And I'm like, no, he's just really cool. He handles pressure differently. Like the rest of us are like pounding coffee, and he's just like, we're good. And that personality was misconstrued for not caring. And so communication is really important. And so when I realized that he was assessed incorrectly, they were like, oh my gosh, he's amazing. I'm like, he's been amazing. Like, he's been amazing. You got to change your lens. And so sometimes people, don't realize that. So even generationally, how we communicate is different. And then our gender roles, and then also physically how we communicate. So like body language and so forth. And so, and then also Western world versus non-Western world. So, because sometimes people from different countries, so they're like, oh, that's very Western world. I'm like, yeah, it's Western world, sorry. So yeah.
So would you say that millennials are misinterpreted instead of being different? Which I mean is, like, they have a different way of communicating that is not set for other people, like let's say older generation. Mm-hmm. So instead of being actually wrong, they're just been misinterpreted. They have just like I said, another way to see the world. And it seems like that's the way you find out that communication was actually the way to help you into your life.
Mm-hmm. So a way I would say it would be communication also help bridges the gap. So there's like lack of information, right? And so and another saying I would say is there, so I'd have like other levels of leadership, say, or managers, right? And they'd say, oh my gosh, they're so stupid. And I'm like, okay, you can't say that. That's rude and inappropriate. And so I'm like, let's see what they don't know. And then like, oh, and so I would share that content, and then they'd go, oh, I didn't know that. And I'm like, people don't want to be mean to you or rude. They don't know something. So just bridge the gap and say, oh, okay, did you know that this is the responsibility? And they're like, oh girl, I got you, no problem. And so, and so it's just, I'm like, it's just, people don't want to be mean. And so specifically with millennials, I definitely think it's, because we have empowered the generation of millennials, like, think for yourself. Do you like it? And because they also like kind of like stereotypically, right, are more relaxed. And they, they're like, I don't have to wear a suit and tie. I can wear shorts. We've actually developed companies that believe in that same culture. And so hence why they know they can do that. So I just think it's really important to understand like how that, people communicate generationally, also culturally, and then ethnic culture, and then corporate culture, and because it's different, and then gender. And so being open-minded to that, it doesn't mean some people are afraid of the word open-minded. They're like, I don't believe in what they do. I'm like, well, do you understand why they do that? Like, maybe ask why. And so I think so that there's a typical, like a cliche that says first seek to understand before being understood. And so it's important to understand why people are doing that. So oftentimes I use the lens. I'm like, change your lens, because you're using it from your scope of knowledge and it doesn't go very far. So use someone else's like eyeglasses to see what they see, and that will help you understand, and it'll help you become a better and a more effective communicator. And so, yeah, so I definitely think millennials are misunderstood. I'm a Gen Xer, so I'm between like the baby boomer and the millennial. I seem to lean more towards a millennial. I want to have fun and creative. I am also very disciplined. So I think I think it's a good thing. So, but yeah, I think understanding that is so. But I think across the board, because I think each generation has their communication like pro and con. And so working with a lot of baby boomers are kind of very structured, and they want things a certain way. They don't want to change to new ways. They're having a hard time to adapt. But also there are a lot of people who have, right? So there's pros and cons to each generation. But definitely, yeah. So to answer your question in regards to millennials, that's definitely where I saw the big gap. And I was like, I'm like, if I teach them this, they'll forever be employed and make their own companies and be able to communicate, So simple things like, so, they pull out their phone like, hey, I'm doing a quick calculation, so that you don't assume they're ignoring you. And so they're like, and they don't understand why we think that. They're like, why do you think that? And it's just because we come from a different generation. So very different.
They're being able to adapt, I guess that's the way to summarize it.
Absolutely. Yes.
And for the last one, the third one, what do you think will be the last principle that has helped you to get you to where you are right now?
So definitely the last principle is connection. And so I have an incredible way of connecting with people. And so when you communicate well, I think it's helpful, but also like, are you real and authentic, right? And so that's a very heavily used word, like authentic and genuine, but people can know like who you really are in your spirit. You can't front that. Like they know that like you're fake. Or, so I just, some people say the word swagger, so they're going to feel your vibe. And so I say it like just generically to people. I go like, I need to know we have the same get down. Like, and I don't care if it's corporate and they're like in suit and ties and they're like, excuse me, ma'am, can you explain that? And I'm like, sure. I'm like, do we like each other? Are we vibing? Like, are we getting along? I mean, I need to know that we have the same shared values. And so they're like, oh, that, yes. And so I'm like, I go, that's what it means. And so I need to know, will you come with me to feed the homeless? Or you're gonna be like, no, that's not my get down. I'm like, oh, okay, we don't have the same shared values. So connecting with people and being able to understand like other people from their backgrounds, different socioeconomic backgrounds. I've worked with extreme poverty to extreme wealth. I've worked with different socioeconomic backgrounds, and then working with different ethnic backgrounds. And so I say it very, very consistently, from hood to Hollywood, we have the same expectations. And so, because I work with different, people who came from prison and then people who are very professional. And so, but the thing is that it's the same expectation. And so I've been at like professional events and know the bike club. And they're like, how do you know those like bikers? I'm like, oh, he's a doctor. like he just rolls into Harley, and you're like, oh, like he looks like a thug. I'm like, he might be on the weekends. I don't know. Like he's giving you $5,000. Are you good? And they're like, oh, like I'm like, yeah, he's like legit. So
Oh my.
I have bikers who are like, they're not doctors, but they're still giving you the same money. It's still green. So I don't know. It's like they're a human being. Like it's all good. And so. But being able to connect with people and then really being able to like listen, and I think that's an incredible part, and really consistently being there. But connecting with people, really sharing that same value, like we're here to support the community. There's no agenda, there's no title. I've had people ask me, come to a meeting and like, who are you? And they think I represent the university or something, and I'm like, just here just to support y'all. And so I don't like to say that, and then someone in the room's like, oh, don't ask that lady what she does more than people in this entire room together, and she's about that. And there's usually like a Bible in front of me, and then they're like, for reals? And I'm like, no, legit, that's what I'm here for. Like I brought the Bible to pray. And so they're like, why? I'm like, because y'all are asking for a lot and you need a miracle. So that's why I brought it, and then really I always typically carry it. So it's no other. People have a purse. Well, I have a purse and a Bible. Like it's just a different thing I do. And then people are like, oh man, like you're really like legit. That's your character. I'm like, yeah, legit. That's me. Like there's nothing other than that. So, cause really at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, right? We're here to help each other. So.
So you are very open to share your core values.
Oh,
Do
yes.
you think that that has a lot to do with connecting with people? Like, is it easier to be just open with who you are in order for you to connect with other people that share the same type of values? Is it easier, or is it something that is better for you?
It's always worked for me in the school when I was teaching as a professor. You can't talk about your faith. You can't talk about God. And so I would say, what do you see on Instagram? And they're like, oh, no, Miss Mendoza, we see you on Instagram. Or what do you see in my Snapchat? And I'm like, when do you see my hands together? And they're like, are you in a fight? And I'm like, sometimes they don't get it. But you know what I do for you guys a lot? And I always have my hands together. And like, oh yeah, Miss Mendoza, you pray for us. And I'm like, I just don't say it. Right. So it's really helping them and be encouraged that I have them in thought. And so, so for me, it's as I've grown in my faith, it's been very easy. And then it's also helped me like learn that like the ways of the world is not like it's not everything, right? It's nothing at all. It's really about how you serve people. And like your assignment every day is to wake up and serve people. And the more you learn to that's it. Like, and then you're going to pass away and make it to heaven, then it brings you a different level of peace. And so, so for me, it's easy. I just do it very carefully when it's politics are involved. And so I do share, I respect other people's faith, and we just have open conversations if they're from a different faith. And so I think, as, people of faith, I think it's definitely important to continue to have that responsibility and share who you are and share that light. And that's it. So there's not more to it than that. You can say your titles all day long, but they just want to know if you're a good person and you're there to support them. And then, and you ask them for that same shared values and they support you too. So yeah, it's always worked for me. It hasn't hurt me. And, I've also brought a lot of people over to really grow stronger in their faith in Jesus Christ. So that's been a plus for me, because they're like, oh, I go to church now, Miss Mendoza, or they're like, I wasn't really feeling your whole like Bible thing, girl. And I was like, however you do it, YouTube, you walk in the building, like, and they're now believers. So it's been a really cool process. So yeah, so I'm thankful for that.
To summarize everything, is based on the principles you have with communication, character, and connection. I really feel like you have a lot of characteristics going based on the development of a leader. So I really like that about you, and I think that's awesome. And I really thank you for being here, for sharing all of this information with us, and being able to share like what you've done with your life and how principles have helped you to become who you are. We really appreciate it. I thank you for being here. You're an awesome person. And yeah, hopefully we can have you one more time, maybe later on. Absolutely. And so you can tell us more about how you've grown and what you've done in some time. So thanks again.
So Warner, I want to tell you, thank you very much for your continued servant leadership. I know you come from a position of respect and love and humbleness. And so we can all learn from you. You created a platform for us to communicate right from our heart and really truly share what has worked for us. And it's going to be an incredible platform for people to learn from that. And then also, really look to you for that leadership. And so I would encourage those of others to really take this as an action item to share your YouTube platform, use this in classrooms as part of their curriculum, and then also encourage that for the corporate world. And so if they're looking for a leadership topic, this would be an incredible way of using that, because you provide that a very clear format. And so I would encourage that as an action item. So, really share like this information and then the good news, right? And then we really, applaud you for taking that courage to want to share that, because I definitely don't see a lot of Latinos doing that. So if I can say that. And then as males, we do need more male leadership. And I know people think there's a lot of males out there, but we need more, and we need more positive mentors and role models. So thank you for serving us in that way and helping us grow. So that's awesome.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I do, is there anything that any website or anywhere that people can reach out to you, maybe for your services or anything, any platform that you would like to share with us in order for people to reach out to you?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm at LeenaMendoza.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. So you'll see the same communication level across the board, the same personality, a little bit more funnier on TikTok. And so, but I create like messages on there to share on leadership, and some are funny, like my chola dance. And so, but you got lots of likes. I'm like, really? That's what you guys liked? And they're like, I'm like, you must have an inner gangster. I don't know. So, but really sharing the message of how we can continue to increase as leadership. For what I say is, it is the most important thing to be a hero in your home first before you're a hero in the community. And so, and it's just the way you should lead, the best way. And so, yeah, so those are the ways you can connect with me. Absolutely.
All right. Well, once again, thank you for being here. And like I said, hopefully we'll have you soon once again. And I hope everybody liked this video. Subscribe. The link is going to be right below. Have a good one.